Alright, something special on the bench this week. Isn't that beautiful? This is a 1978 Peavey T60. I'm a huge fan of Peaveys. This one I've probably had for about 6 years. None of my guitars are expensive guitars, they're all cheap guitars. This one is probably the most expensive guitar I own. And it's really only expensive now by accident. A couple years ago, the doom bands, the stoner bands, discovered these guitars and the phase switch they have. It makes a really thick sound. Sometimes they'll just leave them alone, but a lot of times they're taking the necks off and putting aluminum necks. So this one, for instance, I got 7 years ago for about $400, and that was about average back then. Now some of them are going for over $1,000. And it's just a great guitar. If you don't know about this guitar, it came out, let's see, it debuted at the NAMM show in 1977. This model's from '78. It was designed by Hartley Peavey and Chip Todd. So I want to send this video out to Chip Todd. He recently passed away. Seemed like a really good guy. Not only designed this beautiful guitar, but was very active in the Peavey community even later in life, helping people to mod their Peaveys and offering his advice on what you can do with them and fixing them and stuff. So just a great guy. So this Peavey here, this one's 1978 again. It's got a broken phase switch, and I think it might have been modded, and they might have just broken that completely off, so you wouldn't play with it anymore. I do have a switch, but I don't know if it's the right one. I mean, the handle's not the same, and I'm not sure if I need a 2-position switch or a 3-position switch. So, but we're going to take it apart. It needs new strings at any rate. It's been a while with these, but it's in a great shape. Other than that switch there, minimum pick guard wear. There's no belt buckle rash. It is heavy. It's got to be over 12 pounds. The body's swamp ash. The neck is maple. My 2 flaws I have on it, I got one right here, a ding, and another ding up here. But other than that, it's complete. It's heavy. It's got the toaster pickups. Very thick sound. And I just can't understand why these weren't more popular. They retailed way less than a Fender Strat. Maybe it's how heavy they are, and I don't think people wanted to have a wood finish guitar back then. Even though it's such a nice grain, such a nice grain. So I chased one of these for years, and they were affordable. I just didn't want to spend extra money to get one. So basically I got this one, and it was more of the hunt to find it, and when I finally found it, I was very happy. So I own 3 Peavey guitars. I own this one. I'll bring you over here. I'll show you its little brother. This is the Peavey T15. These would have come out in about 81. This one here I got late 90s, maybe early 2000s, when eBay first started. And the only reason I got this for $40. The only reason I got it for so cheap was because they misspelled Peavey in the listing, I think, and I was the only one that bid on it. But it came, the neck was perfect, the body was split, had a lot of problems with electronics. So what I did was I eventually bought new pickups and new electronics and pots and everything for it, and we painted it blue, and this one's my daughter's now, so she plays this. And new pick guard there, and because the old one was cracked. The old one, when I first got this, it looked like it got run over by a truck. But it is just awesome. These were called the Mississippi Mustang because they're a student-sized guitar, like a Fender Mustang. And it's a shorter scale, and it is just so fun to play. And it's light too. It's like a little Strat. But then coming back over here, you know, you got this, the Big Daddy, the Peavey T60. So let's movie in there. So I think what I'm going to do start first is I'll probably set you up behind the table like I do. We'll flip it around and start by taking off that strings in the pick guard. If I don't have the right switch, maybe I'll just order it. But I mean, that looks like the same one. But one of the wire diagrams said it's a 2-position, and this is a 2-3 position switch, so I don't know. But let's get you set up and we'll take it from there. Alright, comfy? String winder, get some tension off of these. You can cut your strings off with full tension, but I don't know. I don't like to do that. Makes me nervous. Pop yourself in the eye. Alright, strings are off. So if you don't know why Peavey started making guitars, it was basically because of Fender and Gibson. Peavey, of course, started making PA systems, amps. That was their bread and butter. They made pretty good stuff. And back in the day, before there were music store, chain music stores, and you can order your equipment online, before Musician's Friend and Sweetwater Online, all that stuff. You go into a music shop, mom and pop place, probably owned, down on Main Street, and you'd pick out your guitar and be on your way. So Fender and Gibson reps would often tell these music stores that if you it would be a shame if you put out all this product by other companies, PV amplifiers, because if you put those out, it'd be a shame if you lost your Fender or Gibson rights to be an authorized dealer. So, of course, Peavey made decent amps. They were way more affordable than a Fender or a Gibson amp. And Hartley Peavey didn't like that he was being kind of stonewalled by those big guitar companies. So he decided to make a guitar to compete with them. He was going to do it more efficiently, at a lower cost, and with the same quality. And he did that. One of the innovations that Peavey has in guitars that you owe all modern guitars, I think, owe to, is the fact that they're the first company to use CNC machining to cut their bodies and necks. So they had a router just like I have an X-Carve, of course more on a commercial scale, and they would cut the bodies out of blanks. It would shape them. They put the necks together in 2 pieces, and those would be shaped on another machine, and they were able to do way more per day and with more accuracy. That's the thing. If everything is being cut by hand over at the Fender factory, the necks are shaped by hands, oh great, but you're going to get a consistent neck. Guy's got a bad day, you're going to get a baseball bat as a neck. But with the machinery, they're always going to be consistent. They're always going to be perfect in the right spot, right? So that's what led him, the Hartley Peavey and his company, to start making these T60s. They also wanted something a little bit different. The way they came up with the body shape was, they kind of figured if you took a Fender Strat, a Les Paul, and maybe a Maserite, threw them together in a blender, what would they look like? And they kind of came up with this. So they had, this was the T60, the T40 was the base version, and they sold very well, as a matter of fact. And I don't think people know too much about these things. And are these still screwed down? Those are screwed down too. Nope, those hold it down. Different screwdriver. what I think makes these neat is, you know, they're very utilitarian. You can take one apart. It's like a Volkswagen. I think Peavey guitars are the Volkswagens of the guitar world. You can get any sound. You can do metal with this. You could do country. You know, whatever you want to do. The way I discovered about these was late 90s. I was just looking for a unique guitar because everybody's got a Strat, everybody's got a Les Paul, you know, everybody's got a Telly. Everybody at the time was getting the Paul Reed Smiths, and I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me. I wanted something different. I like the alt bands of the 90s that would just have these different, unique guitars. You know, from Kurt Cobain with his Jaguars and his Mustangs to, you know, get like Sonic Youth, or they always like to play the Jazz Masters and stuff, and the Maserite. I always liked the Maserite too. I always liked that shape of Burns. They were just such cool guitars. So I was looking for something that was just different. I was at a bookstore and saw a book there about, you know, electric guitars of the world, and went through, and I don't know, I came across this page. This was spread across 2 pages, and I said, wow, that is pretty. And, you know, everybody's got their own idea what a guitar should look like, their own picture in their head of what looks good. And I really like this one. And then I started searching for them, and you know, they've still become popular lately. There's a Facebook group called the Cult, the Peavey Cult. So this has definitely been into, and you can see where that's chopped. Those should have went in over here, and that black is chopped too. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been modded, and I want to put it back to the way it's supposed to be. So yeah, it is a 2-position switch, on, and I got on, off. So I'm gonna have to get a new switch. I didn't want to do that, but alright. Order a new switch. Probably get that next week. I can come back to this one. I got my switches in, and so I got good news, I got bad news, I got really good news, really great news, and then some really bad, awful news. So I guess the good news, I'll give you that first. Well, the bad news is I couldn't get the ones with the flat toggles. I could have got them, but they were kind of out of my budget. But so I found the same switches. The only problem is that they're not flat toggle. They're like round toggle. But that's okay. But the really good news is I went through the fretboard. Not a single one of these is any discrepancy from any other ones. So I don't need to do any fret dressing. So that's good. And then the really, really bad news is I still got this camera. Sorry. So looking through this, as I thought when I first bought it, it was modded to bypass the phase switch. The phase switch, if you don't know how these work, typically your tone control would just control your tone. You'd get either, you know, a bassy or a more tinny, more treble side or a more bass side on your tone. But what these do is you have your 2 volumes, your 2 tones. When you get from 1 to 7 is a humbucker. When you get past 7, they split into single coil. So just one of these will come on, and then this phase switch will put them out of phase. So there was a popular mod going around a few years ago. People just didn't understand these guitars. Basically, a lot of people would, I think there was rumors when they first came out that, you know, people would bring them back and say, you know, it's broken, but it's really they just couldn't figure out this phase switch here. So the phase is going to make it do different sounds, and it's pretty much why they're desirable today, is because of this phase switching, which can give them a real low, a real doomy sound if you get it set up right. So a couple things I got to do to this before I get too far into it. I'll probably start on the newer one that I got. There's two jumpers, this white and this black wire. I'll try to put this, maybe I'll take a picture and you guys can see it. So you got these two jumpers, this black and this white. They kind of make an X. And then, so I got to do that to the new one. One of these white ones goes here, one white one's going to go on the other side, and then this black one, which was grounded here, is also going to have to be put up, I think, over here on this one. So it's just a matter of following the wiring diagram and putting it back together the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to do one piece at a time, so that I can kind of keep it together. It's kind of neat. I did get a 3-pack of these. I really only need one. I don't think it really matters what side it's on, but so I'm going to let that heat up. I'm going to take these jumpers off one at a time and put them on my new one. Push it through. Try to use the original hardware for that if I can, which is that big one, and then these. There we go, that should be it. Everybody's fitting back in there correctly. switches. That's good, I guess, right? Rest of that stuff back into my stash. Alright. Unplug the soldering iron. And maybe test out the electronics before I string it all back up. Alright, so what better way to test a Peavey guitar than with an old Peavey amp? There's a Peavey Rage, generously donated by my man Vic Hucklebuck, because he knew I needed a bench amp for testing rather than using the wireless across the room. So thank you, Vic. So we got this phase switch in here, and let's see, 1 through 7 we should be at both of the humbuckers. Louder here. Yeah. And when we get past 7, go up to 10, it should turn into a single coil. See, this one's live, that one's not. And we switch it, they should switch. Yeah, so that works. That is going to be pretty cool sounding. So now that I know that works, I will do some cleaning. I'll reattach this, and I'll reattach this first, then we'll clean it up and then restring it. See how it sounds. So I really don't understand why these Peaveys, anything Peavey really gets a bad rap in the music world. You know, I've been such a fan of Peavey for such a long time. Maybe I see it with blinders, but you know, in the comments, let me know why people hate Peavey so much. It's because, you know, that Peavey amp you had in high school left you high and dry one too many times. Yeah, I can see that, but why didn't these guitars pick up more? Because they're so heavy? I mean, it's way heavier than a Les Paul, I'll tell you that. Look at how long these screws are for pickguard screws. So it's pretty neat. This one here, according to the serial number, dates back to 78. My Peavey, my T15, the junior version of this, dates back to 82. This guitar here, it debuted at the NAMM show in 1977. And they just really had some cool shapes right through the 80s. If you've ever seen a Mystic or the Peavey Mantis, go look them up. There was nobody else really doing that. Maybe BC Rich was doing the off shapes like that, but Peavey really tried to appeal to everybody at an affordable price. It's too bad where they've gone to in the last couple of years. I mean, when you can buy a Peavey guitar at Walmart or Target, you know there's something wrong. You're not catering to the player anymore. So did you have one of these or a T series at all? Because there were other T series. This was the T40. I mean, this is the T60. They had the T40, which was the bass version. And then you had the T15, which was the junior. And then you had the T27, the T25. Might be a couple other ones in there I'm missing. I got a book right here, actually. Here, check this book out. If you ever want to know anything about Peavey, this is a great book. Just a great book. It's got everything. Pays a lot of homage to Chip Todd, which there really should be. It was not just all Hartley Peavey. Although he was the money man and he had some great ideas. Smart guy, built some great amps. Let's see what else they had here. They had the T40, T60. I know there's some more in here. But this is kind of neat. A Les Paul Standard at the time retailed for $898. Fender Strat retailed for $685. And a Peavey T60 retailed for $375. And you can get all that tone in there. Is it just because it came from Peavey? I don't know. The T15, the T30 had a 3 single coil configuration. The T25 had just the 2 humbuckers. T26 had the 3 single coils. 27 had 2 single coils and a humbucker. But yeah, this is a great book. If you're into Peavey guitars, that's a must-have. I got my first Peavey amp in 1991. It's a Bandit. It's over there in the corner. It's been buzzing for like 30 years, 25 years at least. Actually, it hasn't been that bad. It's gotten really bad in the last couple of years. You can't even use it to play on. But I think the whole thing needs to be recapped. Inputs, all that kind of stuff needs to be gone through. It's the teal stripe, if you're wondering which Bandit it is. But I've always been very partial to that Peavey distortion sound that comes out of the amps. I think it just gets me. I don't know why. Back in the day, everybody had a Rat pedal or the Boss the orange distortion pedal, and seriously, just stock Peavey distortion out of that Peavey, out of the Bandit teal stripe was just awesome. It was just great distortion, and the more you cranked it up, the dirtier it got. Yeah, that was good stuff. Probably only the amp on while I'm sitting here. Burning electricity, right? This thing has more screws than Folsom Prison, I swear to God here. Alright, let's clean her up, put some strings on it, and then I'll bring you back and we'll see how it sounds. Did you ever hear a guitar get louder when you turn it down? So there we are, around 7. Make much of a difference there when we get up to the single coil. There you go. guys over at the studio will have fun with this one. So thank you for joining me. If you have overlooked these guitars in the past, I would seriously give them a second look. If you see one at your local music store, go down and play it. You'd be surprised. If you're a sit-down player, this is perfect for you. For studio, I think this is a great. For recording, I think this is great. Live application, it looks good, but it's heavy, and unless you're like Kane Roberts, all jacked up, you can carry this thing around. But after about 5 or 6 songs, it gets pretty heavy. So anyway, that's my Peavey T60. That's how you fix a phase switch. And thanks for joining me, and thumbs up so I know you like my content. We'll talk again soon.